new series that I'm looking to have here in with Small Business News. It's going to be looking at different books that I recommend to my clients on a consistent basis. Stuff that I have, it's mandatory reading. I just think there's goodness to be able to share a lot of this out here with you and everybody that's present. So again, those don't know, you're just kind of checking this out for the first time. I'm a business coach. I work out of West Michigan around the country. I help small businesses grow faster than I ever thought possible. Again, Somewhat Business Guides, you can go check me out. Again, I hope to be able to earn your subscription today. Let me take care of that. I had a message come through from a client. So today we're going to be talking about this book right here. This is DRiVE. I know it's backwards. Backwards when you look at it here. That's an unfortunate piece here with the mobile app, but it's okay. We can figure that out. We'll work through it. So link to this is going to be in the description to go check this out. This is one of my favorite books. It's by Daniel H. Pink. This really should just be mandatory reading for everybody in, frankly, it should be mandatory reading somewhere in high school, and it definitely should be standard in the curriculum when we're talking about college. It should be. And again, the title here is The Surprising Truth About What Motivates Us. This again, with the author here, Daniel Pink. Again, this is such a phenomenal book. When I was in the military, we passed it around consistently to make sure that people were getting a look at it and had time to take a look, because it was really, really important for folks to get this. And what it means when we talk about the motivation, the idea when you are in management, when you're in leadership, is to put yourself in a position to where you first do no harm. Like, that's the idea. And if you don't have a basic understanding of how motivation works within people and how to motivate them, you're going to struggle even in basic supervision. You're going to have difficulty. And that's what I found. And this book found me when I was in I took a managerial leadership course through I'm trying to think, Villanova University, and this showed up in the packet as, hey, you need to make sure you know this. And as soon as I opened it and started reading it, I was kind of blown away. It was absolutely astonishing to have this piece here. Now, with this is what you want to have more than anything, this book. And what it does is, as a manager, it's going to keep you from really causing more strife with your folks and putting them in a way that's going to undermine their work. It frankly just makes people upset. There's a lot of folks that, the vast majority of people, when we want the freedom to be able to do the work that we're doing. That's kind of where that comes from. And this is really where we get into it. There's a few things that they talk about here, but let's talk about the chapters here where they talk about the three different elements that you have. Actually, again, we're going to walk through just kind of the different chapters here so you can have this piece. What's happening, Bacon? Good to see you. Welcome. This is the other side of my world here in the business coach stuff. So again, we're talking about DRiVE here. Please go, if you haven't read this book, I highly recommend you go get copies of it. You'll absolutely enjoy it. So he goes through here basically starting with the rise and fall of motivation 2.0, and it's with motivation really when we think about it, what it was on our when we were in industrial society. They used carrots and sticks. Like, that was it. They had to incentivize people to do better. You had to give them carrots, or you had to beat them with a stick to get them moving faster, right? And no one likes that. Everyone hates that. It's a lot of extra work, and frankly, it's dehumanizing. It really doesn't work in today's society when the vast majority of our work involves gray matter and having to think. And that was really what he did when you go through this book on DRiVE. Oh, hey, what's up? Welcome, everybody. Again, we're just getting into this now with DRiVE. If you haven't read this book, the link's in the description. Be sure to go check it out. And again, this is a recommendation that I have. This is mandatory reading for my clients, my business clients. This book is, you can tell it's faded. It's got a little bit to it. I order these all the time. So now the next chapter is why they give 7 reasons why carrots and sticks, often don't work. And the crux of it is that when you use carrots or sticks, right? What you do is you are turning, let's say with carrots, right? You know the phrase, I'm going to talk about carrots here, where you got to give someone something to do something. It turns it into a transaction, right? And the carrots are only going to motivate people to a certain level, right? And then, okay, the carrots are not that extra benefit. What you're giving them isn't going to motivate them to where you have to add more carrots to get them going, is kind of the idea. So if you say, hey, I'm going to pay you X amount of money to go do this thing, well, you're always going to have to pay them that amount of money to go do the thing, versus where you want to build what is referred to as intrinsic motivation, which we're going to get to later. Same thing with sticks. At some point, you guys know this, you're getting yelled at by people. It only makes you work hard enough to not get yelled at, right? Or to not get in trouble. It doesn't inspire you to do better, to learn things, to gain curiosity, and the things that we're looking to trying to cultivate with folks. Okay. Now there are special circumstances when they do work, and he does get into this in the book, which is particularly when it is what we would call analog work, whereas it's got a series of steps, one right after the other, that are repeatable, and there's no thinking involved. In those cases, carrots and sticks do work. But the second that you expect people to have to use their gray matter, carrots and sticks don't work. They just do not. They're found to actually make things worse. And that's one of the problems that I deal with a lot of managers, is that they think that they can just start off by, how can we incentivize these people to do more? I.e., we want to give them more benefits, or we want to, again, pay raises. I'm not against those if they're, but pay raises should be for work you're doing, not to inspire you to do more work. It's always been the way I've been at with these things. You want folks to do more, to want to do more, and then you compensate them for doing more, not compensate them to make them want. Anyways, so with that piece, that's the understanding. If it's algorithmic type work, just moving from step one to step 2 to step 3, carrots and sticks work. And feel free to use all sorts of benefits or negative reinforcement if you want to. It does work in that case. But for the vast majority of us now, we're not in that environment. We are in an environment where you have to use your gray matter. And that's where he gets into chapter 4, which is he starts talking about the 3 elements, which are autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And there's this great story in here before we get into those that I just want to share out of the book, which I thought was fantastic. It has to do with, for me, my kids went to daycare for a while. They did a study at it was an Israeli daycare center. And this is one where it really stuck home to me about, okay, where the negative, when you add carrots and sticks incorrectly, it has a terrible effect on what you're doing. This Israeli daycare was having issues with people showing up late to pick up their kids. It was a thing that they were struggling with. So what they did is they put in basically saying, hey, we're going to charge you X amount of shekels, which are, they're dollars, whatever, they're shekels, for every minute that you're late, up to X amount, and then they're going to double it. And what they found when they were going through the study, which again, DRiVE, he's got 100 years of studies in this where he's broken this all down. But what they show in the study, which makes sense as soon as I start saying it, the providers in this daycare, they started actually saying, oh, okay, so if I pay more, you'll watch my kids longer. So what ended up happening, instead of cutting back on people, the fines didn't keep people from being late to drop off their kids. That didn't happen. That wasn't something that was the issue. Instead, what they found is that more people started taking advantage of it, and they got more people being late to pick up their kids, because now it was just a transaction. And what had happened before the transaction, after they pulled all of this through and talked with the parents, was like, hey, what changed when they added the fine? And they said clearly, they felt bad about having their kids be in the daycare late, basically past when they were supposed to pick them up. They felt bad as a person. But as soon as the daycare said, hey, hold on, there's a fine, the fine for being late, that put a monetary figure on that, which then turned it into a transaction. And then any sort of bad feelings they had about, where they felt terrible, like they were letting the daycare providers down, went away. And so they were then able to look at that as purely as a transaction from that point forward. Eventually what they did is they did pull it back, and they did undo the fines. It took a while to get everybody to reset there, but at the end of the day, that's a great prime example of understanding when and how to implement those, again, carrots and sticks, and when they're misused, how it can have a negative effect. I increase more what you're talking about there. So, all right, so let's get to the next spot here. So the first of the elements that they talk about in DRiVE here is the autonomy. It's an important piece for anyone basically for anyone that's a human, to be able to have that autonomy, be able to have a level of control over what they do, how they do things, and how they go about managing their day. To the greatest extent possible, and this is what I coach with my clients, you want to find, let me go ahead and do something here real quick. I want to adjust this just a little bit. There we go. Okay, just want to adjust that down a little bit so I'm a little bit more in frame there. So what I find with my clients when we're talking about DRiVE and we're looking at autonomy, we want to have as much autonomy as possible for every single employee. We want them to have the freedom to make decisions, to be able to, if they need to take time on something, whatever it is, we want that, knowing when they have to have something delivered is important. And there is a box, like you've got to work within this box because it is there is a system in place, but we want to give them as much freedom within that box as possible to have as much creativity, decisions, be able to talk to people, whatever it happens to be, but we want to provide as much autonomy as possible. That is where you see the people get the most enjoyment and satisfaction out of their jobs, is when they have the autonomy to play around a little bit and use some creativity. And it goes back to, think when we were younger as kids, right? We're at the playground, we're doing our thing, just kind of, living our best lives at the playground, right? But the playground's got boundaries, but within the playground, it's got all the different play sets, it's got the different equipment for us, swings, slides, whatever. When we would go to recess, or we go to the playground, right? We could just go do whatever we wanted, and naturally, we found things to do to maximize our enjoyment or our time there. The same thing goes for work. The more that people have the autonomy to be able to kind of figure things out and put their bit of style on the work that they're doing, the more enjoyment that they are gonna find within their work. Now, obviously, it doesn't go for everything. You can't have, not every job is going to be able to have the same level of autonomy, right? That is understandable. But within that, you want to give them as much as you can. So, as an example, there's a chain of gourmet donuts that I ran, a chain of gourmet donut shops that I ran a few years ago, and one of the things that we had on there was the training was how to greet people. Now, we did not have a standard greeting for people. That was not a standard. What we did have is, we had a set of axioms and rules, but really what the teaching step was, when you're talking to the folks, when you are greeting a customer, what we want you to say is try to ask them a question in a way that finds out where their mental state is. Like, that's what you want to do with your clients. So it gave our folks a freedom to be able to come up with different ways, like, hey, how's it going? Hey, how you doing today? How are things? And the idea was they could adjust it to meet their personality. We still needed to meet the box within the company of like, hey, here's how we expect you to conduct yourself. But yeah, do it yourself, and your folks. And the reason we did that with the question, right, to figure out the mental state that the folks were in that were coming into the donut shop, we wanted to know if they were in a hurry. We wanted to know if they were having a good day, a bad day, whatever it was, so that we could then deliver service that matched their mood, where they're at. We want that to be the best 5 minutes of their day, whatever that looked like, to get their donuts, okay? So we're going to take a quick little break on DRiVE. We're going to come back to this here. We'll get into the next two things. I do want to talk about a couple of things here. For those that don't know, this is the Path to the Pinnacle. I'm a business coach with Pinnacle Business Guides, and we have a multitude of books. This is one of them here, The Path to the Pinnacle. This one clearly, it's by Greg Clearly and Micah Areth. they have clearly articulated what it is to do a business operating system and how guides help them with that. Highly recommend you go to Amazon, go check this one out, Path to the Pinnacle. It explains what, basically the work that I do with my clients, how we work on the people, the purpose, the playbooks, and performance is really where we get, which then leads to profit. But ultimately, we build businesses that people love to be at. They're excited to work there, and people are excited to be part of, actually be associated with the businesses that I work with. So again, that's the Path to the Pinnacle. You can go check this out. It's on Amazon. Additionally, one other thing I just want to make sure I cover here is, and we'll go back to this at the end here as well. I offer a course. It's called Essential Coaching Conversations for leaders at all levels. It is available on summitbusinessguides.com. You can go check me out there. And it is an online course where you can go and take some online, you can actually go through. It's a video course. You sign up for it. I send you a hard copy of this book, this manual. And this is a checklist specifically designed to help you when you are having those difficult conversations with your employees, or frankly anybody. It's a great checklist on how to have those conversations. So you can check that out at summitbusinessguides.com. Be sure to go check that out. All right, so as we were zooming along here, let's get back into our next spot here. So we've spent a little bit here in the book talking about autonomy. Was the last piece that we had here on DRiVE. Again, link to this is in the description. Please go make sure you get this book. You'll enjoy every bit of it. Comes down to mastery. Mastery is the second part of the three. Make sure I got the right. May use the right phrase here. The three elements that he talks about. So it's mastery. What is mastery? Well, if you think of, again, let's go back to when you were kids, back when we were young and exploring through the world. There weren't many things that we did not spend time with thinking about. Naturally, how do I get better at this, right? Riding a bicycle. We wanted to ride a bicycle. The training for it's pretty simple. Get on the seat, put your feet on the pedals, steer, and keep yourself going. But mastery is something, again, that they talk about directly in here in DRiVE, is something that we all have inherently with us. We figured out eventually how to ride that bicycle. We didn't have any other motivation other than the fact that we wanted to be good at it. And the same thing goes for folks at their work. The vast majority of people, when they show up to work, they want to know exactly what to do, when to do it, how to do it, within the parameters, and then be able, so that they can master what it is for their work, so they can understand it, right? Nobody wants to show up to work and just feel dumb. And how many of you, when you're at work, have this, have an interaction with a boss or in the given day where you just are like, I don't know what to do here. I'm hearing it from like 6 different people how to go about doing this thing, right? And nobody wants that. And so businesses, you have a responsibility, and we talk with my businesses as well, that to organize, train, and equip, you got to get those things. But we talk about setting up the box for folks to work in. We want to master every bit of that. And what happens when you have mastery, and this is what I thoroughly love about it, when people have the opportunity to master their craft and get really good at what they do, everything slows down. You're able to start anticipating, hey, this happened. Okay, this is going to happen next, followed by this and this. Or you can see problems that are going to be arising that you can get out in front of, which is going to save you time, but also make for a better experience for the for the customer, for the client. It's referred to as flow state, when you get in a state of flow and things are just kind of happening. If you've ever played sports at any level that you've gotten good at sports, especially in the competitive side, where everything slows down. Like when I used to coach soccer, I could always tell when I used to coach under 8 girls soccer. That was where I was when I was in the military. That was my crew, and then we eventually got into U8 mixed because there weren't enough girls. It is what it is. But it was so great when I watched them towards the end of the season, where all of a sudden you could see, and you'd see it click. Someone would pass the ball to a green spot 5 steps, 10 steps ahead of where the player was, and you just see them like boom, and they could run up to it and they would go. Now they may not score or anything, but you could see like the click. You could hear it. Like, oh, it makes sense now. And that's what I mean about mastery. Once they figured out and they now understand and have mastered at their level what that means as far as passing to green. If we don't pass the people, we pass the green. And once that entered their minds and they finally get it, you can just see it. Same thing happens at work. You know the drill. You get into a new job, you're watching things, kind of going about your business, and all of a sudden you're like, there's from training where you're figuring out to, okay, I've got this, where you're at least competent, right? We all go through that phase until now you've really mastered what it is that specialty that you have. That's what we are all shooting for within our jobs. So when I'm working with my clients specifically, and we're talking about DRiVE here, we want to find ways that we can develop our jobs and our processes that lead to mastery for the employees, mastery for my supervisors, mastery for managers and leaders and the executives. And again, at my level, I want mastery for the executive team and for the business owner and the CEO. If they let me, and if I'm invited in, we do the same thing with the board. Every bit that we do is about getting into mastery. Because what it does, it makes it more enjoyable. You can have better conversations once you have stuff mastered. There's a texture and context to your discussions that occur that much more, it's richer, I think is a better way to say it. The conversations are just better. They're more, you're able to have discussions on process and philosophy of the work that you're doing versus the actions, right? That when you're able to make that step, all of a sudden great things start happening. And that's what we talk about here in DRiVE. That's why I recommend this so heavily to everyone here, is when you start working on these, when you start understanding that autonomy and mastery are two extremely important pillars for people to just enjoy being at work. We spend so much damn time at work. Why not take a little extra time and find a way to build this in so the folks that are there are enjoying the time? All right, and then the last one that we got here has to do with purpose. Purpose is the last of the three elements that Daniel Payne talks about in DRiVE. And what is purpose, right? And you see this. This came to fruition and really bloomed. You see this in a lot of organizations starting in the late 90s into the 2000s, but really took hold in the 2010s, which was, what's the purpose? What does my work actually do? What is it? How does it help society? How does it help others? How does it do anything there? And it's one of those things that, sorry, I got a message here. Okay, sorry about that, folks. I still got some work going on here. So the piece here where they talk about, when we're talking about purpose, it's extremely important that when folks come into work, this includes everybody from your first line employees to your supervisors, management, but also when you get up in the VP level and higher, what's the reason we're doing this here? Is it simply just to make money? And you'll find that there are some businesses that's mostly what they are. And again, there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you want your business to be. But ultimately, we want to have businesses that are meant to be there for a purpose. How do we make things better? There's folks that I work with that they only have their business. They could have sold it off to private equity or even just sold it off in pieces, liquidated it. But they keep the business open. It still makes them money. But because it employs 30 people in the local community, we're working together on building basically an employee stock ownership plan, i.e. to make it an employee-owned company. Because for the owner, the purpose is to have the business be successful so folks can have work. These are the discussions I have with people, with these owners, that they could sell and just go take their money, but they understand the importance of having this business. And the leadership team that I work with, they also understand that too. Their purpose is to make sure that this business is successful so that folks in the area continue to have jobs. All right? That's one example of purpose. What's some other ones that they have there? Well, there are businesses that they make a huge part of what they're doing is making safe products so they aren't poisoning the world. There's an individual they talk about in the book here in DRiVE. Again, go check out the links in the description. It's one of my favorite. Again, I love this book. It's, as you can tell, it's yellowed on the pages here. This is an old one. I've had this one for a while, where it has to do with the way carpets were made, right? In the carpet manufacturing world, this is an odd take, but you'll appreciate this. So the individual, they were the big boys in the carpet world. When he found out exactly how environmentally damaging the carpet making process was, when they really did a deep dive and they saw the damage it was happening, they made the commitment to eliminate all toxic, basically all the toxic chemicals that they could to the greatest extent possible. And they still look at those every single day here to remove it and actually market that hey, we have made the commitment that we are not going to have dangerous chemicals in our carpet because your bare feet are there. Your kids grow up there. Your pets, you live there. We don't want to have these toxic chemicals inside of your home, so we're removing them. And then they made it their purpose was to not only obviously reduce and keep things safe, to force the entire industry to change, because they worked as hard as they could to offer their product at a price that made them competitive versus the chemical brands. So now everyone else in the industry within the United States, and again, I can only speak to that level, made the same change. So because their purpose from the owner set the purpose of the company was to remove all those toxic chemicals, that led down to the executive teams, which then led down to the way the entire company did business, which eventually changed the way the carpet industry was managed and operated to the point where they were healthy. And that's what we're talking about when we get into the 3 pillars here. So let's go back on that, use that one as an example, right? The 3 pillars that with the carpet example there. All right, let me get my notes here. All right, so let's use this piece here, how this all comes together between the autonomy, right? The autonomy, mastery, and purpose, right? They don't have to go in that order, but let's talk about right now. They are the leadership position in this company. As far as when it comes to carpeting, they're in the leadership position. They take a look, say, we want to change. So their purpose has now changed to we want to have this, right? So cool. They got the right people in there. Everybody rallied behind it. There's yeah, we're going to make carpeting safe. We're going to make it not healthy for folks, but not unhealthy, right? Get rid of the toxicity. Which the only way they could do that is through mastery. They had to fully understand every aspect of what they did, and stuff they didn't know, they had to have the freedom or the autonomy to be able to figure out, hey, how can we make this work within our business that's in line with our purpose. And that's how you want it to work, folks. We want the purpose is going to be driving you where you're going. Okay, everyone on board? Hey, cool. We're behind the purpose. We need you to have mastery of each of your responsibility, what you are responsible for your work. Spend time, really focus in on that and make sure you know it. And we're going to give you the freedom to do that and be able to make decisions that are in line with the purpose and alignment with what your best known understanding of how that process should work. Okay, that's what you're looking for when it comes to, and that's really what the heart of what you get out of this book. I highly recommend if you go and download this book. It's on Amazon. This is not sponsored. Like I'm saying, this is we're talking books today on Monday, books that I have my clients read, and this is near the top of the stuff that I have folks read. So make sure you go spend some time, go check that out. But yeah, after that, we get into a few more stories, but at the heart of the matter, it really does come down to understanding those principles. You need to know what type of work you have. Is it analog, right? Yeah. Again, sorry, that's not the word I want to say. Is it algorithmic or not? Does it follow a series of steps every single time, or does it require you to think? If it requires you to think, you do not use carrots and sticks. If it's algorithmic, step, and there's no freedom at all, carrots and sticks are useful. They will actually increase your productivity. Anything else, the moment people have to think, carrots and sticks do not work. So no benefits, no incentives or disincentives. And then you really get into your 3 things you got autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So that's AMP. This kind of is how I coach it. If you can get those things in line within your company, you're going to be amazed at how well your folks are going to be doing. And also, listen, if you're a supervisor, I cannot overstate this, that if you're a supervisor and are leading people, you can use this book to help you out. You can just have it as something that's available to you to use. I would highly recommend it's something that you look at. When I was a supervisor, My bosses didn't have this. I started using this within my organizations. This is in the military where we were using this to make things better. I did what I could, where I could, when I could. Okay? And that, again, is my message to everybody out there. So with that, hopefully I've inspired you to check out this book, DRiVE, again, by Daniel H. Pink. Links in the description. And yeah, so I think I'm going to be doing this about every Monday, I believe. I'm going to work on getting out here onto YouTube Shorts, where we're going to be talking books. I think it's important to do this, to be able to have this out here for folks so they can have a better understanding of what the leaders that are, what the best known practices are for business owners in and around the world. All right, take care, and I will see you next time.